Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Today's guest on my show I have, well, a London comedy legend. 50 years he's been in the show in business. They call him the godfather of comedy. It's Mr. Jimmy Jones. How you doing, Jimmy?
Good afternoon, young man. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, mate. I'm absolutely fabulous. Well, I first bumped into you many, many years ago. Probably more years than both of us care to remember. Over in Bailey's in Watford, the Bailey's nightclub, who's no longer there.
Oh, Bailey's at Watford.
It used to be a great place. I saw some of the...
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
And of course, the thing being in those days, if you won opportunity, if you won Stars in Your Eyes, you finished up with a 20-week contract with the Bailey organisation.
Yeah.
We had to do all of the whole Bailey circuit, and one of them, of course, was Watford.
Yeah, Watford.
All over. As luck would have it, I never won it. I just only picked the ones that I wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great place. I mean, I know it's no longer there. I think it's a nightclub. In Ordinary, you've got a nightclubby place now, which I think both of us are far too old to be frequenting.
Yeah, it's years since I've been to Watford, to be very honest.
Yeah, I know. It's not a place. I'm actually going there in a few days' time, ironically, to do meet up with somebody and to do some doing a photo shoot for some paintballing for a show. But we won't. It's years since I've been. It's one of them places that I don't go very often. But I mean, going back in the 80s when I saw you, I was blown away. And I'll tell you a little story. I have this cassette tape which I got from you, and you kindly signed it. And I lent it to my father a couple of days later, and he was driving into London, into Docklands, and he rang me at lunchtime and he said, "For goodness sake, it was a few other words. For goodness sake, don't lend me anything like that again, because I nearly drove off the road laughing." And my dad comes originally from the East End. He was born in West Ham in London, and he absolutely loved it. And I think he's seen you a few times and seen bits and bobs. But what you're famous for is the live gags. It's fast and furious, the political incorrectness, even perhaps I would say.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about. And so, I've got a young man with me on my show coming out your way, Nicky Pugh, and he's built the same as me. He tells gags. I sit and watch the new generation of comedians, and they're telling some lovely stories, but they don't make me laugh. I like to see a belly laugh. I don't like to see right, finish. I like a belly laugh.
Yeah, I do as well, and I've got plenty of belly to laugh at, laugh with, so we're all right there. I mean, I find some of these comics, and they sort of tell the gag, and you think, and?
Yeah, and you're waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, and I mean, I must admit, sitcoms on TV at the moment, I'm never quite sure if they are supposed to be sitcoms, because I've never really, the day of the sitcom has gone really, and that's.
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I spent my Christmas last year and again this year looking at Morecambe and Wise and the two Ronnies, and everything else like that, and they were the only things that made me laugh.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty. I mean, I don't understand sometimes. I mean, the only thing I find amusing, I must admit, on TV is Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Yeah,
you're it.
Carol's lovely. He really is a lovely man. He's a lovely man as well. That's the lovely bit about him.
He is he?
And he's running out of ideas, isn't he? That's exactly what's...
Well, I think that's the trouble. It was supposed to... I think if I remember correctly, the story of Carol, he got Mrs. Brown on the radio, and he sort of created this character on the radio, and it sort of basically blossomed from there.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's great. But let's not talk about him. Let's talk about yourself. I mean, 50 years in the business.
Actually, you're a little bit like... this is my 50th, coming up to my 55th year.
55 years?
Yeah, 55.
So I underdid you. So it's 50 plus VAT, isn't it? That's how we do it. And, I mean, you're well known around the London circuit and around, well, all over the country. You do, 200 and something shows 275 shows every year, or around about that sort of thing.
Times have changed. We were just talking about Bailey's.
Yeah.
I used to go to Bailey's at Watford, and I would start on a Sunday night and be there till the following Saturday. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, it's one night shows everywhere, isn't it?
It's one night, and sometimes there's a few that can do maybe 2 or 3 nights, but you don't see many of them doing weeks nowadays.
I've noticed that down on the seaside of the coast, you know. I mean, when I was a young man, I used to go down to Great Yarmouth, and there used to be an act on there all week.
No,
There used to be on there.
It was there. I mean, I used to. I did. When we talk about that, I went to Yarmouth and I worked the Britannia Pier first of all, and then I walked the Wellington Pier, and I went to the Wellington Pier and I was there for 12 weeks during the summer, and then I changed from there and I went to Bournemouth. And I used to do the pier in Bournemouth or the Tregonwell Hall, and I would be there for like 16 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, but nowadays...
It's about 6 weeks at the height of the season, and it's a different show every 2 days.
Even then, in the 6 weeks of the season, it's different shows every night.
That's
you
right,
the
it
same
is.
show running night after night after night. You know, for some unknown reason,
I don't know.
It doesn't seem to work.
I don't
know
understand,
why.
because I used to go down there, and we used to go on a Saturday, and it was somebody on from Saturday. It was on Saturday night, and then Sunday night used to have a guest, a special, and then you used to have the rest of the week was the same person. You know.
I mean, I was on one. I was on one pier, and Russ Abbott was on the other.
I remember it well.
Then Freddie Starr had been coming for some time, you know, and they were as I say, weeks upon weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I saw some of the great comedy legends there. I mean, I saw the great Dick Henry perform live.
Oh, he was lovely.
He was a great guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him as well, and to see him do.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting him.
He was a great fella, great fella.
I mean, I can remember going on tour. And there was only 2 of us on the show. There was Bob Monkhouse and myself. I would do the first half, basically singing in those days, in little bits of comedy. And then Bob would take over the second half. And it was just the 2 of us. And we'd spend weeks down in Margate and Ramsgate, you know, and they were close to one another.
Yeah.
And we'd go to Folkestone, we'd go to Eastbourne, you know, all that coast for us, for our summers. I did 2 years of that with Bob.
Yeah, well, he was a legend, wasn't he, as well? A real sad loss to the comedy world.
Oh, he's a magic man.
He was,
and a nice man as well.
I remember him. He was one of my favourite comedians. One of my when I was growing up, he was on the TV, and he was everywhere. He was Mr. TV. But I always used to sort of say about him, oh, he's a smug so and so. And when I spoke to him and met him, he said it was all part of his, because he was very shy, really, very almost like a lot of comics, and that very insecure and very sort of shy almost, you know.
Well, he did. I mean, believe it or not, I first met Bob. I used to sneak in as a kid. I got in a show at one time when I was 17. I got in a show in London called A Night at the Comedy. And it was a show that was put together by a fellow by the name of Daniel Farsons, who used to have a pub called the Waterman's Arms over in Millwall and the Isle of Dogs. And I got on this show, and the compere of the show was a fellow by the name of Ray Martin. There was Tim Cordell, Mrs. Shalwick. I was a singer. I was in a talent competition on the stage because they'd built a bar on the stage to make it look as though it was still a pub. And there was two acts in and we used to do it every night of the week. I was one singer, and the other singer was a lady by the name of Queenie Watts. And she finished up having the pub called the Ironbridge Tavern. And closing the first half was an up-and-coming comedian from Liverpool by the name of Jimmy Tarbuck. And closing the bill was a fellow by the name of Jimmy James.
Oh, yes.
And Stumpy Marsh's stooge was Roy Castle.
God, yes, I remember Roy. What? I mean, there's another gentleman, sadly no longer with us, you know.
Oh, Roy was a nice man.
Yeah, he seemed to be one of those guys who never, completely opposite to you, was not naughty at all, was he?
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't anything he couldn't do. I mean, it's like all of us in our business. We had our ups and downs and everything else like that. But it's like whatever. I worked at Jolly's at Stoke for weeks on end with Roy. I was the support act, and I used to bring in people like Peter Gordino. Do you ever remember?
Yes, I remember Peter Gordino. Like he had the fuzzy hair and
yeah. Had a fellow by the name of Tony Christie came in. I had Sid and Eddie Large.
Oh.
And of course, I was the support act to these people, and they were lovely. All nice of them, you know, really lovely.
Because, I mean, your act's well known for being, shall we say, how do we put it, blue? Yeah. I mean, I mean, no. So anybody who's going to come and see you, I mean, we'll mention where you're going to be in a little while. But anybody who's going to come and see you, if they're easily offended, perhaps it's probably best they don't come and see you.
That's for sure.
I would say no more than that. I mean, because also the other thing you like to do, you like to engage with your audience. I mean, you were one of the first comics I ever saw who, shall I put it, sort of picked on the audience, shall we say?
Yes, I used to do it. I mean, listen, if anybody moves while I'm on, I will have a chat.
Yeah.
But it's all chat. I don't go out of my way to insult people or anything else like that. I go out of my way to make humour out of whatever if they're going for a wee, sort of, then I mean, listen, on one of my videos, I followed a lady into the ladies' loo, and I said, I'm on the stage. She said, yeah, but I couldn't hang on any longer.
I remember one of the stories you tell, or one of the gags you did at Bailey's. I saw a gentleman go into the toilet, and he came out, and you sort of waited for him, and he goes, "Could you hear me in there?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I could hear you as well." And I remember you doing that gag, and it's one I've actually used myself a couple of times for sort of different situations, and I remember that, and I mean, that must be 30 years ago.
Yeah, for
which
sure.
is frightening, isn't it, really? And I mean, your catchphrase,
Kinnell,
yeah.
There were several reasons of how I got Kinnell, but in actual fact, my main reason how I really got Kinnell was, for my sins, I happened to be a Spurs supporter.
So, there's two of us.
And this is true. Spurs were playing Sunderland. And I used to knock about with a really lovely man by the name of Les Allen, who played for Spurs. I was talking to Les only last night, and we were very, very dear friends. And I used to drive his dad to the ground.
Wow.
And we were there watching Sunderland playing. Sunderland had a footballer by the name of George Clinell. And his name was George Clinell. And they got a penalty. And this George Clinell missed. And all these Sunderland supporters went, Kinnell! I like that. So I used Kinnell for years and years and years. But of course the video company said times have changed, which they have.
Yeah, times have changed, but I think there's still a place for vintage humour.
Yes.
I mean, you still sell out wherever you go, and you're probably what would we say, the biggest name never to have appeared on, never have your own TV show.
Well, they were. I mean, believe it or not, do you know who tried to get me my own television show? And this is true. Benny Hill tried hard to get me my own television show, but they were frightened of me.
I know. I don't understand.
And I said to them, when I sit back and watch television now,
yeah.
and I'm looking and I hear Alan Carr and all the others, and they're going off and then watching it, and I thought, I'm not allowed. I wasn't even allowed to use Kinnell. Johnny Hamp wanted me to use it on the Comedians, but it meant that he had to spend a few minutes every time explaining why I was using Kinnell. So he said, you can't use it, Jim. Otherwise he'd have let me use it, you know. But he said, it means I've got every show, I've got to let you have 3 or 4 minutes of explaining Kinnell.
Yeah.
And I haven't got that time, he said, because it's comedy. And of course, when we were on the Comedians, it was the case that you had 12 minutes, and that was your 12 minutes. And Johnny cut that around exactly how he wanted it. He was very, very clever. I mean, he's still alive, and he still lives in Manchester, John. Often talk, and he was a great. I mean, the Comedians, when it was about, was a very, very funny show.
It was a great showcase as well. I mean, there was many few. Frankie came.
It changed me from being a singer comedian to a comedian singer.
Yeah, I mean, there was loads of people come through there. There was obviously.
There's not many of us left, unfortunately.
No, Frank.
There's Jim Bowen.
Yeah.
There's myself.
Well, Frank's no longer with us, is he? He was on there.
Dougie Brown's still around, I believe.
Yeah.
But from the original comedians, I don't think there's any others left. Sort of Mike Reed's died.
Yeah.
Has died. Charlie Williams has died.
Yeah.
They're all sort of, you know, it's all gone away, which is a shame because they were good shows. But of course, it's like everything else now. I sit down and I sat this week watching We're Still Open All Hours.
Oh, yeah, it's fabulous, isn't it?
And clever writing.